Emily. It was supposed to be just another birthday party. Nothing too special. Just a gathering of friends, family, and a few drinks to celebrate my best friend's 50th. But what happened when I came home that night? Well, it changed everything. Hey, where are you watching us from? I'd love to know where my story is reaching. Drop a comment below. It means so much to see your responses. Now let me take you back to that night. The air was thick with the kind of warm comfort only a house full of old friends and family could create. The smell of pizza, the chatter, the laughter. Everything was familiar, almost nostalgic. Samuel, my son, had stayed home, but that was normal for him lately. He turned 20 last month and seemed to have shifted into this space where he preferred his own company over social gatherings, even when it was something like a birthday celebration for one of my closest friends. I hadn't thought much of it. The evening was going smoothly, and I was catching up with old faces I hadn't seen in a while. As the night wore on, I could tell everyone was starting to wind down, the sounds of music and conversations becoming more muted. I decided it was time to leave, feeling the pull of my own home, knowing Samuel would be there, probably in front of his game console or lost in his thoughts. I remember walking out the door of the party and feeling the cool breeze hit my skin, taking a deep breath as I slid into my car. It was a brief familiar moment. Nothing extraordinary. But little did I know it was about to be a night that I would never forget. When I got home, the house was quiet. Too quiet for a Saturday night. I made my way through the living room, expecting Samuel to be on the couch, his usual spot. But the dim light from his room caught my eye, and I noticed his door was slightly ajar. I knocked lightly before entering. Samuel. He was sitting at his desk, his back to me, but he turned quickly when he heard my voice. His face lit up with a small smile, which seemed out of place given how distant he had been lately. Hey, Mom. He greeted me, his tone warm, but there was something in his eyes that caught me off guard. It was as if he'd been waiting for me. What's up, sweetie? I asked, leaning against the door frame, sensing that something was different. Samuel shrugged, looking down at his hands for a moment before meeting my eyes. Just thinking. I repeated, my heart skipping a beat. Something in his voice sent a ripple of unease through me, but I pushed it down, trying not to read too much into it. Yeah, he began, pausing as though weighing his words carefully. About you? Actually, that caught my attention. About me? I said, stepping a little closer. What do you mean? Samuel exhaled slowly, his gaze shifting as if he were trying to find the right words. I've been thinking about the way you've always been there for me. How you've always done everything for me. But I've never really thanked you. I guess I took it for granted, you know? My chest tightened. I could feel the lump in my throat start to form, but I didn't know what to say. Samuel, you don't have to thank me. I'm your mom. He shook his head, and the expression on his face shifted. No, you don't get it, Mom. I've been selfish and I need to say this now. I don't think I can live the way I have anymore. I need to change. I'm not the person I want to be. I blinked, my breath catching in my throat. I'd been a mom for almost 20 years, and never had I seen Samuel like this. Vulnerable, open, honest, and there was something else in his words. Something that felt like a crack in the foundation of everything I knew about him. I took a slow step forward, the room suddenly feeling smaller, the walls closing in on us. What do you mean, Samuel? He looked at me for a long moment, as though weighing the significance of what he was about to say. Mom, I've always felt like I needed to be someone else, like I wasn't enough. But tonight it just hit me. I am enough. And I need to make sure I'm living my life for the right reasons, for myself, not for anyone else. I stood there trying to absorb everything he was saying. My heart swelled with pride. But there was something else too. Something that felt like a sense of loss, like I was watching my son step into a new phase of his life. One where he no longer needed me the way he used to. And then he added something that completely threw me off balance. I don't think I realized until tonight, Mom, that I think I've been holding on to things I shouldn't have. That part of me feels like I owe you more than just words, but I don't know how to say it. His voice faltered and I could see the vulnerability there. A side of Samuel that had always been so guarded now breaking open in a way I didn't expect. I walked over to him, gently resting a hand on his shoulder. Samuel, whatever it is, we can talk about it. I'm here for you always. He let out a shaky breath and looked at me, his eyes soft, his voice barely a whisper. I think I've been holding on to the idea that we're always going to be the same, but we're not, are we? My heart clenched, and in that moment I realized how much he'd grown up, how much he was becoming his own person, standing on his own feet, ready to face life in a way that didn't rely on me. And yet, there was a part of me that felt proud. Proud that he was willing to confront these feelings. Proud that he was stepping into his own, even if it meant stepping away from me in a way. Things will change, Samuel, I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. But that doesn't mean I'm not here for you. We have to keep learning and growing together. You're not alone in this. He nodded, a quiet resolve settling over him. Thanks, Mom. For a moment the weight of his words hung in the air, and I felt the room around us stretch into something more. A space where change was possible, where growth was inevitable. But it wasn't until he spoke again that I realized just how much this night would mark a turning point for both of us. I don't know if you'll understand right now, but what I'm trying to say is I think we both need to change in our own ways. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, and I suddenly knew that everything had shifted in that moment. What Samuel said wasn't just about him. It was about me too. And that was just the beginning. The night had settled into a quiet hum, the kind of silence that feels thick with anticipation, as though everything was holding its breath, waiting for something to shift. I stayed in Samuel's room for a while after that conversation, unsure of how to break the silence. There was so much unsaid hanging between us, like two pieces of a puzzle that almost fit, but still needed to be turned just right. I could feel his eyes on me as I sat across from him, unsure what to do with my hands, unsure of what I was supposed to say next. The weight of everything was sitting heavily on my chest. Samuel had opened up in a way that made me feel both proud and overwhelmed. As a mother, you always want to protect your children from pain, but it dawned on me that perhaps in trying to shield him from hurt, I'd also shielded him from the chance to grow, to truly know himself, to take those first steps toward becoming his own person. For the first time in a long while, I found myself questioning everything. My role in his life, my role in my own life. Was I really the person I thought I was? Was I really living for myself, or had I been living through him, through his needs and desires? I let out a long sigh, leaning back in the chair and running my hands through my hair. Samuel, sensing the shift, cleared his throat. Mom, I didn't mean to upset you. Upset me? I looked at him, trying to mask the rush of emotions that threatened to break free. You didn't upset me. You've given me a lot to think about. I guess I never realized how much we'd both been avoiding. He raised an eyebrow, clearly confused. What do you mean? I swallowed, unsure of how to put into words the complex feeling swelling inside me. I think I've been living in this bubble, Samuel. I've spent so much time focusing on you, on being your mom, your protector, that I lost track of who I am, of what I need, what I want. Samuel's brow furrowed. Mom, you're amazing. You've always been there for me. I don't know if I would have made it through without you. I smiled, a bittersweet chuckle escaping my lips. I know you're grateful, but that's not the point. I don't want to keep living in the shadows of your life. I need to start living for myself, Samuel. I've spent so many years giving myself to everyone else, to you, to my job, to the house, that I forgot how to just be Emily, the woman, not just the mom. The words hung in the air, and I realized just how much of myself I had lost in the process. I had given so much of my heart to others that I wasn't sure who I was without them. Samuel seemed to process what I was saying, looking away for a moment, deep in thought. I get it now. I think I've been doing the same thing. I've been so focused on making sure everyone else is happy that I forgot about myself. His words stung more than I expected. It was like hearing my own thoughts echoing back to me, and for a moment I couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. Here we were, two people who had spent so long living in the roles we thought we were supposed to play, now trying to figure out who we were underneath it all. Samuel stood up and walked over to his window, gazing out into the night. I don't want to keep pretending anymore. I want to figure out who I really am, not just who I think I'm supposed to be. The vulnerability in his voice left me speechless. He was trying to step away from everything he'd known, just as I was. He wasn't the only one looking for something more. I want that for you too. I whispered, my throat tight. I want you to know that you don't have to be perfect, Samuel. You don't have to have everything figured out. I just want you to live for you. He turned to face me, his eyes soft. You're right, Mom. We both need to stop pretending. And for the first time in a long while I realized something. Something that would stay with me. lingering like a truth I couldn't escape. We had both been hiding behind masks, unsure of who we were beneath them. Samuel had been holding on to the idea that he needed to be something for me, and I had been holding on to the idea that I needed to be something for him. We had both been playing roles, but we were done. We were tired of pretending. I could feel the room change, the energy between us shifting in a way I didn't fully understand. It wasn't just about Samuel anymore. It wasn't just about me either. It was about what we could be, what we could both become if we let go of the things that had been holding us back. I stood up, crossing the room to stand beside him at the window. We both stared out into the night, the city lights twinkling in the distance, 1,000 tiny reminders that the world was vast and our lives were just a small part of it. But in that moment it felt like the world was bigger, like anything was possible if we dared to face it. "I've been thinking about that night at the party, Samuel said suddenly, breaking the silence. "About what I said to you." I turned to him, raising an eyebrow. "What about it?" "I think it wasn't just about you," he said quietly. "I think I was talking about me too. I need to change. I need to stop hiding behind all these excuses. I've got to start living for myself." My heart clenched. This wasn't just a son speaking to his mother. This was a man standing in front of me, vulnerable and real, ready to take responsibility for his life. "You're right, Samuel. We both have to stop hiding," I said softly. And it felt like something clicked into place, like the pieces of a puzzle that had never quite fit before were starting to align. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about all the times I had tried to hold on to the past, the way things used to be, the way I used to be. But in the silence of that room, with the weight of Samuel's words still hanging in the air, I realized that the past was gone. The only thing left was now, and it was up to both of us to make something new, something better. Samuel was right. We couldn't keep pretending anymore. We had to face the truth of who we were and who we wanted to become. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something beautiful, not just for him but for me too. The days after that night felt different, almost as if time itself had slowed down, giving me room to breathe and think. Samuel and I had spent a lot of time together in the days that followed, just talking. It wasn't the same as before. Those quick surface-level conversations that barely scratched the surface. This time it was real. It was raw. We were talking about things we had never said aloud before. It was almost as though we were rebuilding our relationship from the ground up. But this time it felt more honest. Samuel was opening up, and in turn I was starting to open up too. There was something beautiful about it. Something that made me feel like I was seeing my son in a way I had never seen him before. Not just as my child, but as his own person, full of complexity, dreams, and struggles. He began to take responsibility for his actions, his feelings, and for the first time in years I felt like he was really living for himself, and it was contagious. I found myself thinking more about what I wanted, about the things I had put aside for so long. It wasn't just about Samuel anymore. It was about both of us finding our own paths together yet separate. One afternoon after I'd gotten off work, I found Samuel in the kitchen, his back to me, humming to himself as he prepared a sandwich. The sound of his voice brought an unexpected warmth to my chest. It was like hearing him for the first time, like hearing the son I had known for so long, but in a way that felt completely new. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him for a moment, a smile tugging at my lips. "You never used to hum when you were younger. What happened?" Samuel paused, his knife halfway through the bread, and turned to look at me with a small grin. "I guess I've just learned to find joy in the little things. You taught me that." I blinked, surprised by his words. "I taught you that?" He nodded. "Yeah. I used to think life was all about big achievements, But now I realize it's the small moments that count. Like this. Just being here with you. It's all I need." My heart swelled with pride, my chest tightening as I took a step into the kitchen. "Samuel, I never knew you felt like that." He shrugged, setting the knife down on the counter. "It's something I've been figuring out. And honestly, I think it's the same for you too. You don't always have to be everything for everyone. You just have to be who you are, right?" It hit me then. Samuel wasn't just talking about himself. He was talking about me too. He was saying the things I hadn't been able to say to myself. That it was okay for me to stop trying to fill all the roles I thought I had to. I didn't have to be the perfect mother, the perfect friend, the perfect everything. I just had to be Emily, and that was enough. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity, like a fog had lifted from my mind. I had spent so much of my life trying to live for others, trying to be what they needed me to be. But the truth was, I had forgotten to live for myself. I had forgotten what it meant to be me without the labels of mom, wife, or friend, just Emily. I walked over to Samuel, who was still standing by the counter, looking at me with those same soft eyes that had always held so much of his heart. I placed my hand on his shoulder, and for a moment neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The silence between us was comfortable now, no longer filled with the weight of unsaid words. "I'm proud of you, Samuel," I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of the man you're becoming." He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "And I'm proud of you, Mom, for finally finding your own path, too." Those words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how much I had been waiting for him to acknowledge my own growth, my own journey. But now, hearing him say it, I felt like I had finally reached a place where I could truly see myself, where I could finally step out from behind the roles I had been playing for so long. "I think we've both come a long way," I said softly. "And we still have so much more to figure out." Samuel nodded, his eyes reflecting a quiet understanding. "Yeah, but I'm okay with that. As long as we keep moving forward." In that moment, I realized that change wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. Samuel had changed, yes, but so had I. And that change, that growth, was something beautiful. Something that would make us both stronger, closer, and more connected than we had ever been before. As the days passed, I began to feel lighter. I started making time for myself again. Time to read, to paint, to take long walks, to breathe. I didn't need anyone's approval to do it. And Samuel, well, he started to figure out who he really was away from the expectations he had been carrying. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other, and we were both learning how to live for ourselves. It wasn't always easy. There were days when the weight of the past tried to pull us back, when doubts crept in, but we kept moving forward, and that was enough. Sometimes it's the smallest moments that change everything. A conversation in a quiet room, a moment of vulnerability, a realization that you don't have to be perfect, that you just have to be you. That night, after everything had been said and done, after we had both shared our fears and hopes, I felt a peace settle over me. Samuel was no longer the boy who needed me in the way he once did, and I was no longer the woman who had lost herself in his need. We had both become something new, and in that we had found each other again, and that I realized was the greatest gift of all.